We have been given the answer that the President of Russia will remain in office for the first time. I would like to remind everyone that at the beginning of the war, an American president named Biden, who we may still remember, went to Warsaw and gave a speech. I will say it in English for the sake of credibility, but it sounded like this: Putin must fail. This means that Putin must fail. He must fail, not win or go to war. He must fail. The Americans have openly announced that they want to create another political regime in Russia. This has led to the situation we are in now, in which the European Union is financing the war, and Russia is also financing the war. A competition of financing is taking place between the two, in which the Russians are currently in the lead. This situation is weakening them, and we are getting involved. Ukraine is being divided up. The question has been raised since then. What will happen to Ukraine? We have spoken about this for a year now. Today, if we look at the developments and understand what is happening there with a cool head, we must say that Ukraine is being divided up right now. Before the war, Ukraine had a very clear situation. It existed as a competing state, in which the Russians and the Westerners made up 50% of their influence. There were debates about this from time to time, and this kind of government came and went, but no one questioned the fact that Ukraine was a region between the West and Russia, a competing state, and everyone was certain that it had about 50% influence on both the Russians and the Westerners. This was the situation up to the war. As a result of the war, it collapsed. How exactly did this happen? This is another topic for another lecture. The point is that it collapsed. Today, Europeans speak elegantly about security guarantees, but a security guarantee actually means the division up of Ukraine. The first step has already been taken because the Westerners have accepted that there is a Russian zone. The only debate is whether there will be 2, 4, 5 or 6 counties beyond Crimea. But there is no doubt that this would not exist. A Russian zone has already been created, and this accounts for about 20% of Ukraine. This is the past. There is no longer any debate about this. The debate is about how many kilometers from the border of the Russian zone a demilitarized zone will be created. 40 kilometers, 50, 100, 200. We do not know. This is nonsense. This will be the second zone. The result of the division up of Ukraine is a Russian zone, a demilitarized zone, and finally a Western zone, which we cannot say anything certain about its orbit and conditions at the moment. But we can see that Ukraine is becoming a region consisting of 3 zones. The heads of the European Union think that the common tax on everyone, at least in Western Europe, is the easiest and most acceptable goal for which a huge amount of tax can be taken. This is the Ukrainian war itself, that is security. On this basis, they want to create a huge tax on all of us. We, Hungarians, think that this is a mistake, because the EU membership of Ukraine is the necessary consequence of this common tax. Because we allow the Ukrainians, we do not have the money to close the Ukrainians up to the EU average. We have to take up trust in this. They think that the Ukrainian membership, the war and the Ukrainian membership create the common tax. But in reality, the Ukrainian membership brings the European Union into the war, because we cannot imagine that there are member states of the European Union, and one of the member states is being attacked from the outside, or is being involved in border conflicts, as is the case now on the Russian-Ukrainian border. It is impossible that in such a situation, the member states of the other EU member states would not rush to the aid of the one who, by the way, is under military attack. Even though Ukraine is under military attack, Ukraine is in a conflict with Russia. It will never decide Ukraine, but always Russia. And we are already in the war. So I think the Europeans are mistaken. Ukraine is a member state of the European Union, directly or indirectly, but in any case they bring us into the war. In addition, we do not have the money. I just said the numbers, how the performance of the EU declined. We do not have enough money to restore our own competitiveness, and we want to take the money we have to Ukraine. So we are destroying the European Union in economic terms as well. Europe should not be exiled to Washington, but should go to Moscow, and a European Union-Russia security agreement should be signed, not only from Ukraine, but a European Union-Russia security agreement in which it is clear that Ukraine will not be a member of NATO or the European Union, but it could be, and I think Hungary could support it as well, that there should be a strategic cooperation agreement between Ukraine and the European Union. We do not want to kick the Ukrainians into nothing. We are not against Ukraine. The European Union cannot open up to China and India until the war is over, because the war is the starting point. To accuse China and India of buying the energy of Russia, and thus financing the war, this excludes the fact that we have an economic cooperation agreement with these countries. In other words, I want to say that the continuation of the war is a lost European strategy.